Intervention for, this is executive dysfunction. That's what EDF stands for on my slides. How does change happen? We know a lot about how change happens. It's brain maturation. That's a biggie. There are limits placed by this. Incidental learning from being in the world and watching other people. There is a big modeling piece, right? That's part of normal cognitive and executive development, which is we show kids what it's like to get up at a certain time, to eat certain things. That modeling and experience, in fact, directly impacts learning and brain development. Can't be separated. All right. Learning from direct instruction and scaffolding. The scaffolding idea is used a lot in special education and education, saying that we have to keep supporting and developing the foundation skills before we can move on to the next level. What are we talking about with a lot of these kids with ADHD? These executive skills, the bases, the foundation skills are shaky. They're variable, all right? What are the challenges of intervention? As we've already mentioned, Dr. Brown has, it's not one discrete entity, all right? What's the other thing? Life keeps coming at you, right? It's not like you say to the peers, can you just hold up for 3 years? Because I think we've got about a 3-year delay here so she can get with the program. No. And also, there are unknown upper limits on executive ability. It really wasn't that long ago we thought, everybody outgrows ADHD, right? And there are people who become less hyperactive. There probably are people who learn how to function. Again, it's kind of an open, but you know what? Do you know any disorganized adults? Don't point to anybody, that would be rude. Okay. So what we do is we're going to do our support and try our interventions for as long as possible, and when somebody reaches a point, we're not giving up. As an adult, we say, okay, we've done coaching, medicine helps, we've tried this, we've been working for a long time to build independence, but you know what? It's not happening. So at some point, what do? We use compensatory strategies. How can I get the bills paid? I've tried all these strategies. I can't do it. Can we hire somebody? Can we use a service? How can we get this job done? I've got to mention this. I know it's a little negative, but a few of you have kids with ADHD. So how do we convince children with these weaknesses that it's really going to be beneficial to work with us, to try these strategies, right? This is easier with some kids than with others, all right? What's a big part of how we help kids? Again, this is a non-medical approach. You know what we do? We build habits and routines until we have automatic behavior, so we're no longer needing our executive control. Things are automatic, all right? And so how do we convince a fifth grader? Well, here's the deal. It's going to take a lot of effort, but I'm going to help you with it. And, after, probably 5 months, maybe it's not that long, when you've put your backpack in the same place every day when you come in the house, it'll become a habit and you won't have to think about that. Doesn't that sound excellent? And the kid goes, really, it's not a problem for me to just leave my backpack wherever, then you go find it. And again, I'm being a little flip here, but this is hard, right? Because this does take more conscious effort. And kids don't always see the payback. In fact, they often won't see the payoff immediately. And unfortunately, it takes these kids, even when they can develop a habit or routine, it's a lot more than the minimum number of repetitions, right? No matter how smart they are, it's a lot more. So what are we talking about? The model from our book, and again, this is very common sense. I used to say all the time when I talk with nice folks like yourselves, I used to say, well, this is common sense, but I'll just mention it. I've stopped doing that. You know why? What is common sense to you and just the best way of handling a task may be a light bulb moment for me, right? Maybe something I hadn't thought of. That's really true for these kids, right? You're like, well, of course he knows that cleaning your room means first you take stuff off the floor, then you put dirty clothes, right? Right? No. Some kids, I don't mean they're just being in denial and they want to just do their own thing. When you say clean your room, organize your backpack, clean out your locker, they just shuffle things around, right? They need somebody there modeling and cueing them. So here, how do we help these folks? And this really applies for adults. I'm really focusing more on children and adolescents, all right? We have short-term and long-term approach. What are short-term interventions? These allow a kid to get through the task, get through the day, and get through the week without too many negative consequences on performance and self-esteem and other important things. All right. Otherwise, if they were just out there doing what comes naturally, again, they might really be having even more trouble. Much of the time, these interventions are really in the form of supports, accommodations, modifications. Some things we do with the child, not for them, doing some things differently at home and at school, providing more prompts. Yeah, a lot of these interventions involve another person. It doesn't have to always be an adult. Sometimes peers can help. All right. These also provide opportunities for kids to continue to take part in important developmental experiences. You know, I don't know if you have scouting up here or similar, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, guides, I don't know what they're called. But you know what? It actually takes pretty good executive skills in a lot of these groups to earn your badges or whatever you might work for. Has anybody been familiar with this? They're great experiences, but you know what? We're asking kids to do a lot of this independent performance and planning. So what we might do, this is in the short term, is say we want you to be able to participate in this group, but we're actually going to reduce some of the requirements. You still have to work on your sewing badge or your hiking badge or whatever it is, but we're going to do a few things differently because we think that's fair. What do short-term interventions also do? They reduce the risk of the serious secondary and comorbid problems. They don't take them away. All right. These are things that even the playing field. What works? This is Russ Barkley's term, I believe. We build a prosthetic environment. We adapt the environment, right? Kid sits up front. Kid can take a test in a separate room. Right. We adapt the task. And what we're really doing often as adults, teachers, parents, psychologists, administrators, OTs, PTs, whoever, we're lending our prefrontal competence, right? We're lending executive competence. They can do the reading. They can do the conceptual work. We're providing support for these weaker executive skills. And yes, a little depressing, but true. Although we call these short-term, they may need to remain in place, be faded and modified for years, not months or weeks. I hate to say this, right? Wouldn't it be nice if we had some program? You know, it'll cost thousands of dollars, of course. But we just had some program where you can take a kid who really struggles with a lot of these skills, and within 6 months, you get them caught up. It just doesn't exist in large part because of the biology here. All right. Long-term interventions focus on strengthening your skills. What can you do independently? All right. As I said earlier, one of our biggest tools is developing habits and routines that eventually become automatic. You still need your executive skills, but once something is automatic, you don't have to think about it. A good example for grown-ups is not just driving a car, I love that one, but where you put your keys when you get home, right? Do any of you have a habit when you come in your home, you put your keys on a hook? Do we have any hook people here? All right, do we have any basket people? I mean that just that you put your keys in the basket, nothing more judgmental. All right, I'm a table person. That seems like a lot when I'm traveling to bring along, so then I turn into a purse person. Okay, more information than you need. My husband uses the pants transfer technology. Should I describe this? He only wears pants. Well, it doesn't work for me. I wear skirts, right? He only wears pants. So in the privacy of our home, don't worry, I'm not going to tell you anything inappropriate. He takes off his pants, morning, puts his fresh pants on, transfers his keys. Now, the cool thing about these habits and routines, once they're developed, is it's not like when I'm going into my home, I have to keep directing myself, right? Put your keys on the table. Put your keys on the table. All right. Now, if I get interrupted, actually, what might happen? Then I might forget to put my keys on the table. All right. Some people react to this and say, do you want to turn us all like into robots? No. The more habits and routines you have, and we've known this for brain injury, we know this for folks who have more severe developmental disabilities, and we know this from people who are very effective in their jobs and daily lives, getting all the work stuff done. The more habits and routines you have, the more you're freed up, in fact, to think about and do more interesting things, higher order things. All right. Now, wouldn't it be nice, whether your kid came to you biologically, by adoption or fostering, wouldn't it be nice for them to have an owner's manual? I've actually fantasized about this. I know I need to get some hobbies, all right? Wouldn't it be nice? Because the book would tell you, for this particular human, who is unique from anybody who has ever been and anybody who will be, don't even try toilet training until age 4. It just won't work out. Everything will be okay, but I'm going to save you 2.5 years of trouble. And this person will be ready developmentally to read at age 7. Don't worry, they don't have dyslexia. They're just not going to be ready to do it. And this person should never operate a motor vehicle as long as you have any control over it. All right? Wouldn't that be nice? Because you know what? If we are providing too much support, it's the balancing act, right? It's not just with the executive skills. If we're providing too much support, not having people have the experience and do things that they really can do with better proficiency, then we may be promoting what many people, and I know many educators are worried about, which is overdependence, learned helplessness. Those are negative things. The issue is if we don't even the playing field, there are really sometimes too many negative consequences that ensue because of these weaknesses. So all we have to do is balance things. Intervention is not doing everything for the kid, right? It's not an excuse for inadequate effort or bad behavior, and it's not praising or rewarding all behavior. There's good research now that, in fact, really clearly says there's huge problems if we praise or reward all behavior. What do we know about behavior change? And I'm going to get to, what we'll do is I'll cover just some of the principles of one executive skill, and I'll take a few questions. Use real life to teach and practice skills. Now, a study skills organization class never hurt anyone. I don't think that's possible. But in my experience, having a kid go to a 2-week class, even if it's well taught, to kind of review and discuss the ways of organizing a notebook, do those transfer over to doing it? They would if it's purely a knowledge problem, right? Laurie, have the salad, not the bacon cheeseburger for lunch. Oh, got it. Okay, got it. All right. Again, it has to happen in the context of the kid's real life. Take a teaching versus a punishing approach. Does punishment work with some kids? It does. There's a lot of reasons to not use it. All right. Collaborate with your child, easier for some kids than others. All right. Focus on the desired outcome. There was a study done a long time ago. It just cracks me up. I think it was a while ago, where they actually, we get very clever. I love research. I try to keep up with it. I don't do it, but I so appreciate the body of research we have out there in ADHD. But here's what the researchers thought. They actually put sensors in the seats of a school because they wanted to have more on-task work completion, right? So they actually measured how much time the children's bottoms were in contact with the seats, thinking, see if they could sit longer, and they reinforced them, all right? There were no shocks involved, okay? They reinforced them. And you know what? They could get them to sit, even kids with ADHD, for long periods of time. Did they get any more work done, people? No, because you have to reinforce the work completion, not with kind of this other associated variable. And as we know from lots of good researchers out there, and I don't have time to go over all this, in fact, a lot of these kids should be standing a good part of the school day, should be allowed to move, should really, that movement actually can activate some of these brain regions. All right. Now, what do we do when a kid has behavioral problems? Well, in the U.S., we send them down to the office where they sit on a bench for a long time and then get a good talking to. All right. Now, I'm not saying there shouldn't be consequences. In fact, those kids need physical movement who are having those self-regulatory problems more than others. Raise the stakes. All right. I'm going to mention just one other thing. Change does not occur in a smooth, steady manner. This is true for lots of us. With these kids, it's even more true. Don't get discouraged. I know it's easy to say. 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Have you ever experienced that? Things are going along. You've got these supports in place. You say, okay, we need to fade back. That's important, right? We need to see what this kid can do. I think she's ready. And what do? We pull the prompting or we pull the support, and what happens? We can almost be back to baseline sometimes. That doesn't mean this person can't and won't keep developing. It means they're not there yet. I love to talk about natural consequences. Why? I always learned And I think these are still pretty well-accepted behavioral tenets, that natural consequences are powerful teachers. Did you learn this? That if a person has a negative enough, powerful, meaningful enough negative thing happen after they behave a certain way, guess what? They learn from this, and they change their behavior. All right. Any of you have any kids who don't seem to learn from natural consequences? Again, I don't want to stereotype. There are kids with ADHD who do learn from natural consequences, but for a range of reasons, you know what? Sometimes they don't. And in fact, this is always an issue, especially in high school. I'll have parents say, you know what? If we weren't helping, and they're not doing his work, he would be failing. In spite of his 135 IQ, he'd be failing most of his classes, because guess what? He does well on all the tests, even without studying still, but the homework and the in-class work are so inconsistent. Do you think I'm doing the wrong thing by continuing to provide, this pretty significant daily help? And first I say, tell me about your kid, right? Because there are some kids, even in high school, for whom that's appropriate, and others, probably, for whom it's not. All right. Define and target the problem. I'm going to skip this. All right. These are just some of the kind of just systematic principles for dealing with executive weaknesses. And it's only for an academic reason that I'm saying impulse control. Impulse control is not separatable. That's not even a word, is it? From all the other executive skills, but just to talk to have a framework to help parents think of interventions. What I like to help parents do, and I know you want to come to an expert like me to say, okay, I don't care about theory, forget about, just tell me what to do, right? We're screaming at each other all the time. You never do that, do you? Around homework, right? And it's just tell me the answer. And the thing is that actually parents have more ability and more of the answers as far as figuring out the interventions or supports they need to design for their kids and that they need to advocate for. This is not to say that professionals can't help, but you know your kid's personality, right? You know what he's responded to. You know what she'll work for. All right. Impulse control. In Patricia Quinn and Judith Stern's book for kids on ADHD, Putting on the Brakes, which is now in its second edition, which is just a very useful book, they talk about that some people, like cars, have weaker braking systems, right? Eliciting the stop function is a lot harder. And again, we have a lot of fancy ways of talking about inhibition or impulse control. I like to keep it simple, all right? No matter how smart a parent is or a kid, I like to keep it simple. This gets really complicated. Impulse control, not saying or doing the first thing you feel like saying or doing. Does that work for you? Having a little buffer of time and a little bit of access to your thinking brain before you act. What are our general strategies? Then I'm going to take any questions you have. All right, and again, you have these general strategies for the other executive skills in your handouts. They're quite self-explanatory, and I'm happy at lunch or at dinner to talk any more you like about it. All right. Provide external structure, right? Okay, Susie, we're going on a field trip. I know it's really hard to remember to keep your hands to yourself. That's our educational ease, right? For don't grab other kids' things. All right. So here's what we're going to do. Remember, these are the rules, right? We reinforce them, right? And remember, okay, do you want to sit with me or do you want to sit with Ms. So-and-so, right? We have that external structure. Physical proximity can be a great intervention, right? Do you know kids who, in fact, will complete their work better just when you're sitting in the room with them? It says it's time to work. It sets a framework. Doesn't always work. All right, Susie, we're going on a field trip. Remember, right when you get on the bus, this is for younger kids, if you follow those rules, you'll get a sticker. Again, you're just shining a spotlight on what's expected and giving them more reminders and structure. Offer support to bolster the stop function. Plan in advance. Again, this is not to sell you short, and I don't want to ever be presuming or saying that just because a kid has ADHD that your life with them is miserable. I don't mean to be saying that. I know there's a lot of joy in parenting any kid, but you know what? Again, these are also more stressors than a lot of other parents are dealing with. So sometimes you actually just have to know what are the places and times where we're likely to have really impulsive behavior, and in fact say, you know what? Do we really want to take 4 of his friends and go to this place? Maybe not. All right. Teach alternatives to negative behaviors. I'm just going to do a few more. Use rewards. If this kid will work for reinforcers, they can work amazingly well in the short term, right? To help them develop the habit. What happens, though? I have parents all the time, and I get this, who say, you want me to bribe him for doing what he should be doing anyway? I prefer the term reinforcement. Yes, that's exactly what I'm suggesting. That if you want to help get better performance, this isn't going to be long-lasting, that yes, we tighten and shorten the time frame they're expected to work. We offer them something that is of intrinsic interest. It shines a spotlight on here's what you're doing. It keeps it in mind. All right? Not all kids will work for that, in which case, again, they may need more physical support. What's the other thing as far as impulse control? And I have to say this. The other thing is, you know what? If you have a kid who runs into the street on their own, don't let them run into the street on their own, right? There are, as far as impulsivity, there's just physically sometimes you need to structure things so kids can't hurt themselves or hurt other people. Thank you so much. Do we have any other announcements about lunch or anything that we need to make here?